Hello, my friends. Kind of want to make a clarification. I had to take the other two videos now down, not because there was something wrong with what I was speaking in general, but what was wrong with it was the actual dates. I've made the case about how the first three seals have been opened. Revelation chapter 6, the first three seals. I explain the first seal, who it is and why, the second seal, and the third seal. But what I did was made the election year the wrong year. Uh, if you go back to the American politics, the election was in November 3rd, 2020, but the actual seat of change of power wasn't until January 20th, 2021, which is really important if you're looking to fulfill the first seal, the man of sin, the man of lawlessness, the one who comes in that goes down to his destruction, the one who is given a crown, but he didn't earn the crown. It was just given to him, handed over to him. He brings desolation into the world. He causes peace to be taken away from the world. Through his policy, he wears out the saints. If he is that man, the one who came into presidential office in January 2021, then you can count, according to Daniel 7, 1260 days later, and see that that is the allotted time that that man is given to wear down the saints. He is conquering the saints. That's his period of time. That's how long he is given to do it. Times, and half a time. And it's very important that I clarify this because I was pointing to this July 3rd, 4th as being the 1260 days, when in all reality it would be next year would be the 1260 day count from the official time the election, the seats of power were switched. So I wanted to clarify that. Everything else that I spoke of, though, no changes with any of that, just the actual date. So I don't want to confuse anybody with that. But what it led me to was something even more interesting, and that's why I make this kind of in clarification. If you look at the solar eclipse that's coming in 2024, it comes in April 8th, 2024. If you remember back to 2017, we had the other eclipse. It was known as the Great American Eclipse. It happened August 21st, 2017. And you probably all remember that day because you remember that September 23rd, 2017 was the sign that everybody was speaking about of Revelation 12, myself included. The very visual presentation of that sign, kickstarting a period of days. That was in September that year, and this eclipse happened in August of that year. And this eclipse went west to east through the middle of America. And if you look at the one that's coming in April of 2024, it's going east to west down through the middle of America. And of all places where the X actually marks the spot is over a chapel in Kansas. Just a little interesting tidbit there. But I made the claim that the first three seals are opened. Just mixed up the year. And then I saw something that kind of even stood out more. So if you have the seals of Revelation, if Biden is that man of lawlessness who by his policy leads the saints into times of great emotional trouble, kind of the abominations that he puts the saints through by his policies, the transgender policies, the homosexuals, all of the things against children, how we abort more children per year than we have birth children per year, all these things that wear down the saints. He is the king of that. And that is what he is given the ability to do for times, and half a time. And the reason that I say that this was Biden, and I make the case that he was the opening of the first seal whenever he got into power, was because of how he got into power. A lot of things happened in order to put him there, including changing the times and the laws in order that the whole process of how America puts people into power changed so he could then come into power. I make the case that that was the opening of the first seal. And if you go to the second seal opening, that's war, the red horse. You look at February of 2022, where the war broke out in Ukraine, which Ukraine now has been a proxy for World War III. We're already in World War III. It's just right now located in Ukraine, but that will soon change. So that's the second seal opened up. And then the third seal, I make the claim that it just happened whenever the banks began to collapse and we began to print more money. That assures that everything else spoken of the third seal will come to pass. So I say that's the opening of the third seal, what we just experienced. That happened in March 2023. Now this is interesting. January 2021, February 2022, March 2023, Seal 1, Seal 2, Seal 3, then you could expect by pattern Seal 4 to be April 2024, where it just so happens that April 2024 is where that great solar eclipse across America, X marks the spot, eclipse always meaning judgment, that would cover a full period of 7 years where the first 3 seals were opened of the end times. America, when it falls, it is replaced by something even more terrifying than it was. Something that has even, greater place over the whole world. The great red dragon, the beast from the sea, that takes the place of this beast once it falls. It has no mercy for anybody because there are no Christians there. Christians hold the world up, if we can believe that or not. We have held up Western society with our at least lawful morality, even if the people aren't so moral. At least lawfully, they held up the law. But now there's complete lawless runabout. So the very first enemy, the very first people that China, the Red Dragon, would go after would be Christians. And we know this because they already persecute them in China. That begins the Great Tribulations, the falling of America, where China put their puppets into the American government because they're all blackmailed by them, and they take China's money, which you can see playing out right now with the crime family. Once China comes into power and America falls, that begins the Great Tribulations, which, according to the seals, we're looking at that beginning being the 4th seal. As we look at the seals of Revelation, where's this at? The 3rd seal being the famine that we're in right now, the economic collapse that we've just began. It eventually leads up to the point where you work a whole day's wage just for one meal, but then do not harm the oil and the wine. And that has to happen before the 4th seal is open. Now, what is the oil and the wine? In Matthew 25, we learn about the oil, how at midnight all the brides are called, or the bridesmaids are called, and half of the wise virgins wake up and trim their lamps with oil that they brought with them, while the other 5 are told to go try and buy some in town because they ran out. So they're the buyers and the sellers, and these are the different kind of Christians that are in the world. There's those who truly believe and have faith in Jesus Christ right now and know him, and there's those who are going along for that ride, but they don't actually know him. The Church of Laodicea. There's the Church of Philadelphia, and then there's the Church of Laodicea. So the oil in this case is those who are of the Church of Philadelphia. We know that they escaped the 4th seal because the 4th seal says, "Come and see, and I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him." Well, what is the church that Jesus Christ built that is not overcome by the gates of hell? That's the Church of Philadelphia. So that church does not go into the 4th seal. They are rescued, taken out, raptured, passed over, however you want to look at it, before the 4th seal is opened. Now, who's the wine? The wine are those who will need to be fermented to become wine. What are they right now? They're water. Water is necessary in the world, but they're not yet turned to wine. And what is Jesus' first miracle? Turning water into wine. I make the case, and if you've listened to me for any period of time, you understand when I make the case, that there are those who know the Lord, true Christians that believe and know him, and then there are those who proclaim that they know him, but they really don't. There's one true person that knows the Lord and walks with him, and then there's another one that deceives themselves into believing that they walk with him, but they don't. They walk with each other in a big circular group. They're neither hot nor cold, so the Lord spits them out. So they are like the water that needs to ferment to turn into wine. Ultimately, when they're turned into wine, they are then protected also by the Lord, but it comes in times of great, great troubles. The wine goes into the great tribulations in order to be brought to be that wine. The water goes into the great tribulations in order to make the wine. And they're protected by God for a period of time, times and half a time in the earth itself. While there are those who are taken out of the earth before that great tribulation happens, two different groups of peoples. And amongst that group of people, there is a group who will truly believe, and there is a group who are really not believers at all. And that's why you have 2 billion professing Christians in the world. Clearly, you can tell that not 2 billion of them actually believe in God, as half of the church now is overrun by sin, probably more than half of it. So you know that the whole church doesn't believe in God as a whole entity. It's already fallen away. And that is what the Great Tribulations is for, is to test all of those. And the first thing that China will do when they get into power after America falls is persecute and holocaust the Christians on the earth. That's the mark of the beast. Some of them will take the mark and they will go down to Hades. Others will refuse it. They will be beheaded just like their ancestors were. And that's why you have the 5th, 6th, and 7th seal being open. All of that plays out during the Great Tribulations. But we're heading to that point where once the 3rd seal is open, which I believe that it is, there has to come, in order to make that wine, there has to come the removal first of the oil. Because the water cannot turn into wine. It cannot truly believe in the Lord until they see with their own eyes a sign. In other words, this is the same church that says Israel is God's chosen people. Jews and Christians worship the same God. All eyes on Israel, despite that Israel was born in 1948 from the world, the United Nations. It's that kind of church. They love their signs and wonders. They love their praise for each other. The church that I've been speaking about for the past 4 years. This church has that quality about them, because though they call themselves Christians, biblically speaking, by their fruits, they are Jews. And what is the Jew? The Jew is the one that watches Moses go up the mountain, and by the time Moses comes back down, they have a golden calf built and are worshiping it. That's the same thing these ones do. They've made Jesus into their golden calf. They've done what they've thought God is and what they want God to be, and they've built their own image of that God of Jesus Christ, and they've worshipped that with each other, not knowing the true Jesus Christ, but they build them of themselves. They are biblically Jews. So then who is a Jew then that calls themselves a Jew? Revelation chapter 3. They are not Jews. They are liars. They are of the synagogue of Satan. And it's not me that says this. If you have not the Father, you have not the Son. Meaning, if you don't believe and accept in Jesus Christ, you are not part of the covenant. There isn't 2 covenants. There isn't the old covenant and the new covenant. There isn't the Jew and the Gentile anymore. There is either in Christ or not. That he was the great sword that divided the whole world. There's only one form of division. And I'm not saying that there's not Jews out there who won't be saved, because they will. During times of great tribulation, some of the Jews will come out of that call themselves Jews. Even amongst Satan's throne, there will be those who escape it. But right now, they are not. They are of the synagogue of Satan, because what did Jesus reply to them? Well, they say, we have Abraham as our father. And Jesus said, if you believed in Abraham, you would believe in me. Thus your father is Satan. That's the same thing that happens now. Somebody calls themselves a Jew. They do not worship the same God you do, if you are a Christian and you actually believe in the Lord. It is like a husband sharing his wife with multiple other men. That's what they all do. This is the church that still needs refined. And in order to be refined, they need to physically see something. What happened on the boat when all of the wind and the waves started pouring and Jesus was asleep? They became terrified. Lord, Lord, wake up. If you don't save us, we're going to perish. So the Lord wakes up, casually stands up and rebukes the wind. And then that's whenever they say, you truly are the Messiah. You are the Lord. They had to physically see something in order to believe, even though they were already walking with Jesus. It's going to be the same in these days. This group of Christians needs to physically see something. And what will they see? The removal of the oil. When the oil is taken, it happens during the 3rd seal, and I think it has to happen early in the 3rd seal. When the oil is taken out, then that water will turn into wine, and they also will believe and be protected from the wind that then comes over the whole earth. You form the beginning of the Great Tribulations after the oil is taken away. And I believe we're right at that point. Because though I speak about 2024 now, next year, and we very well could come to that point where, we say to ourselves, how is it possible for us to even make it there? And we were saying the same thing in 2020 and 2021. We didn't think we'd make it to 2023. How would it ever be possible for this world to still stand for another year? And I say with man it's impossible, but with God anything is possible. That's why Jesus wasn't taken away until it was his time to be taken away. It is possible that we're all still here for that period of time, but what is more likely to me is when this third seal was opened in March, early on in that third seal comes the Passover event, where those who truly know the Lord are taken up to the ark. Then all of the rest of those who claim to know the Lord but don't, they will see this happen, fall to their knees and say, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? Did we not do all these things in your name? And he will say, I never knew you. He will profess his love for the ones who knew him. And then they will have their hearts shattered and then believe and then truly recognize and understand that they don't share their God with anybody else. He is their God exclusively. And then they will go into the great tribulations and become the 144,000. They will follow the two witnesses, and you'll have that whole group that comes about. So there is that. There's tribulation saints. There's the ones who go with the 144,000, and then there are those who are taken before the tribulation. And I think the ones taken before the tribulation have to happen real soon, because we only have a year to get to that next point where the fourth seal is open. And you can't harm the oil in the wine. So the oil isn't going to be here, but the wine, in order to become wine, it starts as water. It has to physically see something, because the Jews are always in need of a sign. That's why they talk about it nonstop today. Have you seen this sign? Are you aware of this sign? Are you aware this is happening and that's happening? They worship the signs because they lust with their physical eyes. That's why they look at physical Israel and call it gods, even though it's clearly Satan's land. That doesn't change until everything is made again new. The day will come that will again be God's land, but that's not right now. But they lust after the things of the flesh. That's why they're deceived by it. They have fallen for exactly what Jesus said first not to. Do not be deceived. You will believe one who comes in their own name. You won't believe me. They need to physically see the rapture, as they call it, in order to truly believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah. They can tell you they believe in that all day long now, but by their fruits you know who they are. They don't know the Lord. They're constantly going after other gods, lusting after other things, and the only way they can be broken of that is if they physically see an event. Now, where could this event come from? And this was interesting because I spoke about it years ago. I said, if they were to take Donald Trump out, he's very much a picture like the two witnesses. Because whenever he was in America, it was prosperous. It was a nation going in the right direction. Common sense was beginning to come back. And then the man of lawlessness takes that position back by force, removing him, stripping him of his power. Just like Christ was crucified, and Satan thought he stripped him of his power then, but in all reality, that was the victory for Christ. If you look at Trump coming up, he's going to be arrested apparently, and it's going to happen in New York City. They're going to arraign him in New York City, figuratively called Sodom and Gomorrah. You're going into the same kind of thing, where your Lord was also crucified. And I say, if you see something happen with this, where he is killed, that very well could be the sign that it's time for the oil to depart. Because you can't protect the oil and the wine from the things that would take place on this earth, where they are located, after something like that would go down. That really would kickstart something that there would be no way that you could keep peace. So I really look at that as possibly the sign, just like whenever Jesus was handed over to be arrested and crucified, perhaps that's what we're going to begin to see next week, We really might not have very much long to go at all, my friends. Those of us who know the Lord, continue to look up, because these are the things that the broad church is not going to see or understand. And I'm not saying that Trump is the Savior or the Messiah. He's not. What I'm saying is it is a sign of that Messiah, of his return, because he's putting parallel events in the world, in the Spirit, so that we can recognize them, but other people can't. He is a parallel event. Trump is a parallel event, so that those who have the eyes to see don't see Trump. They see what God is doing in the world and in the nations. If something happens next week to Trump, and it happens in New York City, look up, because our day of departure, I believe, draws really, really, really nigh. And the third seal is open. There's a whole year before then. I don't think that the oil goes and makes it for that full year. I think we have to be taken first in order that that water be turned into wine. God bless.